didn't plan it out this way, but it looks like we got Frenchie back on the stream.
Yeah, that was kind of my fault. We're choosing who to be on stream for the next round before pairings were up, and I really wanted to see this Golgari Knights Adventures deck, one of Garrett's personal decks actually, come on stream, and somehow he got matched against Frenchie once again. So we have Grant on Golgari Knights versus Frenchie again on Rakdos Demons.
Yep, so the Rakdos Demons deck, we kind of saw what it was looking to do last round, but the Golgari Knights deck, this is going to be a little bit of an older style deck, and more importantly going to be one with a couple of cards from Eldraine, but the first time around.
Yeah, Throne of Eldraine, not Wilds of Eldraine. The most important card there being Lucky Clover, a 2-mana artifact that whenever you cast an adventure, instant, or sorcery spell, you copy it. So then the deck does a lot of things with, normally the adventure side of things are very undervalued, underrate. Instead of being 1-for-1, it's maybe like, 1 for 0.7, 1 for 0.5. But when you get another copy, 2 copies, 3 copies of the same spell, all of a sudden it starts to look a lot better. So for instance, Beanstalk Giant, 3 mana to search for a land. If you have 3 copies, 1 mana to search for 1 land is pretty good.
Yeah, so things like that. The Golgari Adventure style deck is going to have things like you mentioned, the aforementioned Beanstalk Giant, which can kind of ramp itself out, but it's also more of a Night Shell, so you are going to wind up seeing things that can benefit from that kind of creature kindred type. Edgewall Innkeeper here is another adventure synergy. Whenever you cast an adventure, you could draw a card, but that's going to be pushed off of a cliff, unfortunately, from Frenchie's side.
Poor Innkeeper, man. He's just there, minding his own business, shoved off a cliff.
I mean, gotta earn their keep, right? Just trying to work for the living.
I do see the Clover in Grant's hand there. It is. So Grant will get going here pretty quickly. The other cards that are played, Dreadwood.
Oh,
Mosswood Dreadknight.
Yeah, that's actually a new Eldraine card.
That one, another key component of the deck. The adventure side is 2 mana, lose a life, draw a card. So being able to capitalize on multiple activations of that, all of a sudden drawing 2, 3, 4 cards. Pretty powerful. Oh, FOMO coming out for Frenchie once again.
Yeah, so
Dread Whispers, like we were just talking about, out of Grant.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of cards coming across of, like you said, the Mosswood Dreadknight Adventure side, the Dread Whispers, and ooh, that's going to be a Fatal Push coming out from Grant's side here, so that's going to take care of the FOMO, so he's not missing out on anything there, as draws a card, draws 2 cards actually from that one, because of Lucky Clover, and able to go, but,
oh no, Archfiend of Dross. Archfiend of Dross is here. Grant's still not having a ton of mana to work with here, unfortunately. I'm not really seeing any Beanstalk Giants, not the Smitten Swordmaster, although Smitten Swordmaster on this field does nothing.
There's a Murderous Rider in Grant's hand, but I do believe that in order, so you're going to have to, you get twice, but there's no other valid target. So you are still going to be able to cast that one. The other one is going to not have a valid target, so it'll fizzle. I believe it still winds up staying, it does not get to go on an adventure because you cast the copy first, and then the second one has no legal target, so it actually just goes to your graveyard, and that's what we're going to see this interaction being here.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of interested that Grant's doing all this instant speed stuff at sorcery speed.
I think at this point in time, he just did not want to have to deal with the Archfiend of the Dross and maybe trying to find something from Frenchie's side, but is just going to wind up having the Unholy Annex get cast over here.
Oh, so, but he's casting the Ritual Chamber.
Oh, it's just Ritual Chamber side. Okay, so turn our head sideways for that one because that is going to be, well, actually, I can fix that for us. Turn our head sideways for that one so it doesn't look really weird. That's a 6/6 demon to replace the other 6/6 demon.
Oh.
All right, we get another draw to lose 2 life off of the, what is it, Forsaken Knight?
Foulmire Knight.
Foulmire Knight, that's what it is.
There's another Lucky Clover in Grant's hand, so if he's able, and the Boseiju, it seems like this deck has been powered up a lot since the last time I got to play it.
Yeah, so there's definitely a couple of additional cards being added in here, but, and then we're going to wind up having, oh man, it's the
bird
version.
Yeah.
Man, all these old knights.
It's the Crow Knight.
Order of Midnight, I think is what it's called.
That sounds correct.
Yeah, there we go. Order of Midnight. All right, I remember my Eldraine Limited All-Stars. But unfortunately for Grant's side, that's still a 6/6 demon that's swinging in at his face and knocking him down to 9 here. So
I think it's 6. That is upside down.
that's a 6. Sorry, that is, yeah. So going all the way down to 4 off of the unlocking of the Unholy Annex as well. So Grant going down to 4, Frenchie going up to 22, and Grant has a lot of knights thrown on adventures. Murderous Knight actually winds up having lifelink, but can't really jump. So you gotta have a removal spell for this this demon, or you're not gonna wind up going anywhere.
Yeah, I do think that Grant was a little bit hasty on some of his removal spells. Even with the Order of Midnight Alter Fate there, I'm not certain I would have played that over Lucky Clover, actually, because Lucky Clover enables a lot more efficient use of mana on the later turns instead of having to now spend 2 mana. I think it has 2 Lucky Clovers, actually. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of Lucky Clovers in hand. It looks like this might just, yeah, same kind of thing. The Murderous Knight is going to wind up coming down, gets Grant down to 2. Unfortunately, he won't be on an adventure anymore, but that's going to keep him alive for now. I don't see any Mutavaults or Creature Lands there. And
Yeah,
ooh,
there's the Slasher.
the other part of this one.
Something Slasher.
Oh, Unstoppable Slasher.
That might be it.
Yeah, I'm keep thinking Unholy, Undead. No, Unstoppable Slasher, because this one, when the hits start coming, they don't stop coming, and they don't stop coming as long as it doesn't have any counters on it.
Yeah, so Slasher really being kind of the nail in the coffin here for Grant, I think. Grant definitely needs to have something here.
I mean, we have 3 creatures on an adventure that can block this Unstoppable Slasher for now. So we have some things, but does Grant have a way to gain life to get past the backup threat that Frenchie could potentially put out here? So just the Foulmire Knight as a 1/1 Death Touch. We had the Order of the Midnight as a 2/2 flyer that can't block, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought I saw an Edgewall Innkeeper in Grant's hand. I'm actually surprised he didn't play that first.
Yeah, because the Edgewall Innkeeper is whenever you play a creature that has an adventure, or is whenever you use the adventure side?
Whenever you play the creature side.
Yeah. So that would have been a bunch of cards that Grant could have drawn here, but looking like even tapping some mana here, thinking about, okay, just going to wind up playing a land tapped, and does have 1 mana available. It may just be kind of holding up Fatal Push mana to see if Frenchie's going to be able to go for something here.
Although I don't think he has Fatal Push, so it might be a complete bluff.
Well, we know that.
Yeah, because where I stand, Order of Midnight can't block, right?
I don't believe so.
So if Frenchie has removal for the night, then this is just GG here.
Not entirely sure what the players' life totals are at right now. I saw a couple of flip life totals going on. They're showing that Grant has now gained life, but I don't think there have been any gain life cards on Grant's side.
No, there has been not.
Oh, but now there's an Archfiend of the Dross over there from Frenchie, in addition to a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So, you know, 2 very powerful Rakdos cards.
Yeah, I want to say Grant is mainly a commander player, which is why he seems to be doing a lot of sorcery speed casting here. Because I feel like a lot of times where he did the Murderous Rider and also... Okay, there's the Innkeeper.
Yep, we can take him off the screen for now. Oh, double Innkeeper, actually. Okay, that would have been pretty good to draw some cards, and it looks like we are going to wind up... Smitten Swordmaster was played. That's where the life totals wind up getting swapped around here from Grant's side. But unfortunately, not going to be drawing into removal for the Archfiend, so Grant is going to be scooping him up, and Frenchie is going to be taking another game 1 here in the feature match area.
Yeah, this game is actually turning out to be a lot more interactive than I was expecting. Grant definitely has the tools to try and win here, because at the end of the day, Frenchie isn't trying to win with some sort of alternative game plan. It is still damage at the end of the day. So Grant having Smitten Swordmaster, you know, being able to drain your opponents for X being the amount of knights you control. Sometimes maybe you only have 3 knights, but all of a sudden if you have, you know, 2 clovers, 3 clovers, all of a sudden you're draining your opponent for 12, 15, even more, you know. That, if Grant is able to kind of sequence correctly and try and get more value out of all of his adventure cards, I think that is where his advantages will be. But unfortunately, like, a lot of the copies for Murderous Rider not being able to 2-for-1 stuff, and like not keeping Fatal Push up for certain things, I think, really cost him the game there, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately for Grant's side. I'm not entirely sure what the Golgari Adventures Knight sideboard is going to be looking like right now. Obviously, we'll end up seeing things like Boseiju that was in the main deck, because that one's basically a free roll if you're playing Golgari mana base. Probably going to wind up having a little bit of extra removal options, maybe some Go for the Throats, maybe some Bitter Triumphs or something along those lines. And most importantly, trying to augment kind of all those Murderous Knight kind of adventure shenanigans that you had just for straight up removal spells. We saw Fatal Pushes in Grant's deck as well. And against Frenchie's deck specifically, Thought Seizes will be very powerful, as that can kind of snag away one of those key kind of combo pieces like a Bloodletter or that the Archfiend of the Dross, but also could potentially be Duresses, because Frenchie's deck is going to be splitting a lot of its creatures are off the back of enchantments like Fable the Mirror Breaker and that Unholy Annex Ritual Chamber.
Yep. So Grant, if I remember the sideboard correctly, it does have some amount of Thoughtseize-like effects. I can't remember if it's actually running Thoughtseize. There's also kind of interesting stuff like the End being very powerful removal. What else is in that? It used to be running the Dusk Knight for Amalia, but Amalia's not here anymore, so there's a chance it's not running those anymore.
And that would only really shut off life gain from Frenchie's side, which wouldn't be all too much. Mainly you want to shut off the life loss from your side, which I guess the best way to do that is kill spells. I'm wondering too, because if you wind up going into a slightly longer game, now as you mentioned before, since it is a adventure kind of centric deck from the Golgari Knight side, yes, it does have a lot of these kindred type synergies with the Knight archetype. However, it does wind up also potentially running Beanstalk Giant. So if you can survive the early turn onslaught from Frenchie's side, get that Lucky Clover down, and then wind up getting the Beanstalk Giant ramp out, that's going to be like a big 7/7 that the Rakdos deck can't really trade with that well outside of blocking with an Unstoppable Slasher. Or maybe a Shieldred's Edict if you don't have an Edgewall Innkeeper in play.
Yeah, I think the make or break of this matchup is going to be how much can Grant maximize the efficiency of the adventures that he's casting here. Because ultimately, like I said, adventures are meant to be underrate versions of existing cards. So, you know, Fertile Footsteps on the adventure side of Beanstalk Giant being 3 mana normally just to ramp a basic feels really bad. But again, like once you Lucky Clover, copy it, you all of a sudden get 5 basic lands for 3 mana. That's insane, right? Nobody can argue with that fact, right?
Exactly. And we've seen other decks, even like going into the older Standard and Pioneer format eras, running this Beanstalk Giant Fertile Footsteps kind of combination to ramp things out. And it looks like Frenchie this time is not going to have a Fatal Push for the Edgewall Innkeeper, instead has a Thoughtseize, but there's a Lucky Clover in hand from Grant that he probably wants to take.
Yeah, it's gonna be Clover.
So it's 2 lands and an unknown last card there from Grant's hand. Can't quite make that one out.
Virtue. It's the Black Virtue. I remember the adventure side is Locthwain Scorn, but it is the Black Virtue. It's the one that on the beginning of your upkeep, I believe, you get to revive any creature from any graveyard.
Yeah, Virtue of Persistence there, the storybook kind of art style one. And Grant looks like he has an additional card in hand too that, that's the Crippling Fear, I think it is. It's like the -3/-3 and to everything that isn't the creature type that you name. So coming in with like a one-sided board wipe potentially from his side could be the way we do it, but we do have the Unstoppable. That's the FOMO, not the Unstoppable. I mean, all those Duskmourn arts, they look really cool up close, but when I see them on this camera, they all look the same.
Yeah, they do.
So the FOMO comes in, discards the castle there, and we are going to wind up having that one virtued away. So Frenchie knew that one was coming, but this does give them Delirium.
Yeah, but luckily nothing in the deck has haste. So Grant, even with Delirium, Grant does still have a chance to try and get through here, because FOMO's key point is that FOMO itself also has to attack in order for it to trigger.
Right, so we do wind up having, just for now, it's going to be okay, but we did wind up having this Foulmire Knight coming down from Grant's side that is going to draw a card off of the Edgewall Innkeeper, even though it's just a 1/1 Death Touch, and it's going to start swinging in pretty aggressively as well, as we did have, it looks like, another Virtue there to drain away the Goblin Shaman token. So Frenchie now doesn't have that Treasure Creator, doesn't have a blocker most importantly, but does have a lot of lands to pitch.
Yeah, and actually, Lockwing Scorn as a removal option is really good for Grant as well because each activation of it also gains him 2 life.
Yep, and if you have a Lucky Clover in play, boy,
Yeah.
that's a lot of life.
Oh, Goblin Shaman token part 2.
All right, and Frenchie actually discarded 2 lands and then doesn't play land number 4.
Yeah, looks like both sides are stuck on lands a little bit. Grant does have another. Actually, I think that's a layer of the Hydra. I would have played that instead.
No, and looks like there we go. It's going to be, I think, what did Grant name?
Named Peasant.
All right, so Grant
He's
named
keeping-
Peasant. So he's going to keep the Edgewall Innkeeper around. That's probably the choice you want to make because that one's going to be granting you advantages if you're able to just draw an adventure creature. Right, turn passes back on over to Frenchie.
Discarding a FOMO.
All right, so we
FOMO
discard
Thoughtseize.
Thoughtseize, FOMO, probably looking for land number 4 to maybe just slam down like a Bloodletter of Aclazotz or an Archfiend of the Dross. We have Torch the Tower though, so that's going to be taking out the Edgewall Innkeeper, and then it looks like we had an additional Fable of the Mirror Breaker in hand, but no land 4.
Aren't you discarding the 2 lands was, I think, a little greedy there. I know definitely they want to find more interactive cards, but that might have cost them land 4 for a couple turns, even with all these Fables.
Yeah, but unfortunately for Grant, it's just a draw land go, so that's going to be a window of opportunity here for Frenchie. We have a double reflection of Kiki Jiki, so you can do some silly things with that if we get something else on the battlefield, but Frenchie's shaking their hands there. Doesn't have land 4, but does have an unstoppable slasher, so if we get to untap with these, that's going to be some fun math to do.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what Grant's single card is. I think it's a layer of the Hydra if I was, but now I'm not sure anymore.
No, it could be any sort of things. I think it was a land, but I don't
there's
know
a
which one.
knight,
Okay.
the 1-drop knight, the one that pumps itself.
This is a Knight of the Ebon
Ebon
Legion,
Legion?
I
Yeah.
want to say.
Yeah.
This unfortunately is not a not an adventure knight, but it is a
Smitten
knight for the
Swordmaster.
Smitten Swordmaster.
Casting the Smitten Swordmaster. Oh man, yeah, Grant's mulligans for this game really is costing him a lot of resources. Frenchie having just the right amount of removal at the right times, getting rid of Edgewall Innkeeper when Grant has nothing to play is kind of really backbreaking here, I think. 'Cause Frenchie's able to make 2 copies of Unstoppable Slasher. Obviously Grant doesn't want to take the hits, but there's the question of, does he want to lose his board and still take a hit?
Yeah, and most importantly, we have the fun math that can come in here. So it looks like Frenchie just going to say, I'm just going to attack him with this one. Do you want
Just the 1 slasher.
Do you want to double block and trade for the slasher that will come back with counters? Do you just chump block here? Smitten Swordmaster
Does have lifelink.
does have life links. You wind up gaining 2 life off of this. Most importantly, you preserve your own life total here, which can be kind of important. But if we're going to be copying unstoppable slashers, that math gets pretty close to dead. But just I think these 3 attacks might be enough.
Yeah, this is not good. Because Frenchie is holding up. Wait,
Second Smitten Swordmaster.
why didn't he drain first?
So Grant here, potentially just holding up the activation mana from Knight of the Ebon Legion. That will give it Death Touch and +3/+3, so it can trade with something if he so chooses to.
Yeah, but Frenchie has 5 unstoppable slashers.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I'll use all my mana
And we can have 6.
copies to make 4 slasher copies.
All right, so we have 4 unstoppable slashers coming on in from Frenchie's side. So that is going to be, if one of these connects, it's going to be dealing 2 damage, then they lose half their life rounded up. So this could be pretty interesting to see because it's going to be like 2 damage and then half their life rounded up. I think this might be an ability, like a triggered type ability on damage, so that might just wind up reducing Grant down to 0, but I'm not 100% sure on that interaction.
3 times if you block each element.
I know that with Bloodletter of Aclazotz, you deal half their life, and then they lose half their life, and they die. But with multiple unstoppable slashers, I'm pretty sure it works that way, where it's going to be stacking up, but
Yeah, because
we'll have to see.
you would take 2 damage from each unstoppable slasher, and then you would have 5 triggers on the stack for losing half your life each time.
round it up.
Yeah, so if Grant didn't block, you'd go to 15. and then lose 8, go to 7, lose 4. Yeah, he would actually be dead if he doesn't block.
And if they don't, and they just all look at the same life total, then it's 100% dead. Because at that point, you take 2 damage and then lose 12 life 3 times.
5 times 2.
Yes.
And it looks like Frenchie looking to explain the math here to Grant.
So it'd be 8. So you'd be going to 17, and then
Yeah.
you take half rounded up, depending on.
I'm also kind of curious. Frenchie spent their mana in a really weird way, signaling that they have nothing else to play. Because obviously, I know they spent 4 mana at the end step to make 4 Fable copies, right? But all of a sudden, instead of that, because they ended up using all the Fable copies to make copies of Slasher anyways. So they could have done the same thing by just making Slasher copies at the end step, and then untap, and then make 2 more copies of Slasher, and still hold up 2 mana.
Could have done that, but it looks like just damage being dealt here, so we lose.
Puts me to 8.
All right, how is Frenchie's math working out here?
Losing 9, losing 4, losing 2,
Also puts me to 1.
losing to 1.
All right, so actually not a kill. So maybe gaining that life from the Smitten Sword Masters was super relevant for Grant, as they're just able to live at 1.
Yeah, well, I guess Frenchie had an extra attacker in the other Fable, so that was one reason to do it the way that they did.
All right, and so the Unstoppable Slasher dies.
Oh,
It should be coming back into play tapped, correct? Because those
It
weren't
should.
actual counters; those were copies.
it should. Grant is pointing that out.
All right, so we got 2 stun counters on it. So Grant has blocked Swordmaster.
Yep.
That's flank.
Swordmaster does have lifelink, so Fable making a copy of the Slasher, crashing with the Slasher, gain 2. Oh, no, that's it.
Heartless act.
That was a heartless act indeed, Frenchie.
Oh no, Frenchie's going to heartlessly slay the Smitten Swordmaster, and that's going to be another win going over to Frenchie. Now 2-0 here at Pioneer Tuesday.